Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of WWDB-TV's Meet the Candidate. And we here at WWDB-TV, in an effort to educate the voters, offer a 30 minutes of camera time for free to anyone who's running for any office, regardless of their political affiliation. The intent is to educate you, the voter, so that you know who you're voting for. In a lot of cases, people go into the voting booth, they get halfway down the ballot, they don't know who the judges are, they don't know their city council people, they don't know the board of supervisors or the judges, and so they just stop. We want to try to put a stop to that because these people, like the gentleman sitting here, Mr. Alan Bigelow.
How
Welcome,
are you,
Alan.
John?
Thank
Thanks
you for
for
coming
having
in.
me. Yeah.
Alan is a candidate for Las Vegas City Council, Ward 2. Now, these are the people that affect your life on a regular basis every single day. The judges, the city council, your school board, the local people in the area are the ones that affect you the most. So these should be the most important people that you're looking for on the ballot. So, Alan, I got to ask you, why did you decide to run for the city council in Ward 2?
Well, the first reason, obviously, is accountability. I grew up here in Las Vegas. I've been here since 1963. And this past couple of years during this pandemic was just out of control. People were just lost, and that included our city council. The current person in the seat had made some very grand promises, and one of them being that with her leadership that we wouldn't go to court over the Badlands Golf Course. Well, obviously we went. There's 4 lawsuits in place right now. We just lost one of them for $55 million. I don't know about you, but I don't have $55 million in my pocket.
Not today.
Not today. And probably not tomorrow because I'm probably not going to win a
Not
lottery.
for a while yet.
Yeah. So you know, it became apparent that particular council person was making claims like that on a regular basis and not being accountable for the things that they're doing and creating issues inside the city council itself, to include, you know, a altercation with another councilwoman. So we need grown-ups on the seat. And my past is very solid. I grew up here in Las Vegas. I joined the Army when I was 17 and I basically turned 18 and went to basic training. I spent 24 years there between that and the National Guard. I spent 4 years as a deputy sheriff and became a canine officer there, which I was the 3rd generation of my family to be in law enforcement. My eldest daughter is now the 4th and doing very, very well at it. When I retired from the military, it was time to pick another career path, and so I became a fireman. And I've been a fireman for 18 years now, and I have a couple small businesses that I operate. One of them is a notary service, and the other is a wedding officiant. In that span of time, obviously, you know, because part of that was in the National Guard, I did a bunch of different jobs and ran a restaurant, was a tile mason. I've done, you know, I've covered the broad spectrum.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. All the things that you would need to be a good manager in a metropolitan environment. And so I was like, well, you know, I can keep complaining about stuff, or I can put up and step up. And my military background has never, ever been something where I backed down. So I stepped up, and now it's not about me. It's about making sure our children or grandchildren in Las Vegas come out of this pandemic successful, better, and, you know, just positive. You know, things that can come up have been very unfortunate. The high price of housing, that's gone through the roof now. It's hard to get a rental. It's hard to get gas now. And so, you know, city leaders can take charge in that kind of situation and do things about that.
What can city leaders do? What can the city council do about increased rents and increased gas prices?
You know, I've been asked that a couple of times, and I'm glad you asked it again, because a lot of times what happens is the landlords are having to recover from a presidential mandate, and they're trying to make it up. And I think that we can actually get everybody together, whether it's the finance companies, whether it's the management companies, the rental companies.
Right.
We can get these guys together and kind of just work with them and get it back to where it's more reasonable, because they're just trying to make up for their losses. And I feel for them, but at the same time, we got to get our people into houses, and the houses are just out of control right now. And whether it's in a house, apartment, or what it is, I was just watching a special 2 days ago on the VRBO programs. And in communities that have VRBO programs, people are actually doing long-term rentals in those because it's a cheaper way for them to get a house. It's unfortunate that, a vacation house is cheaper than a regular house, but it's what is right now in other communities. And I think there's some solutions in there, and I think we just got to get all the players to the table and come up with something, because we have some great HOAs out there. We have some great management companies that do the property rentals. We have great apartments here in Las Vegas. We have some of the nicest that you could ever possibly see anywhere in the world.
I know, I've built some of them.
Oh, okay.
I've been in construction most of my life. So,
Okay.
And multifamily has been one of my. But what do you think is the most important issue facing the constituents in Ward 2 today?
Ward 2 is kind of unique because it's more on the upper west side of town. And so what ends up happening is the parents are running out of options to get their kids to school. And without the buses, the kids that are going to school across town are getting stuck in places they shouldn't get stuck. And we need to fix that. And there's a couple solutions out there, but it costs money to fix them. And we got to find the solutions, to get the funds there so that we can take care of that. Other things that are popping up are infill. The infill problem is not quite at an epidemic level yet, but we have a lot of empty storefronts, and we need to bring businesses into that. And in doing that, we have to show the businesses that we can provide education for the children of those employees. And I've been working with CSN and their workforce program to do some of that.
So I went to school here as a young kid, back in the late 50s, early 60s. So
Okay.
I actually attended Fifth Street School.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then because of my father's work, we ended up moving back to California. And when I got to California, I sat on my butt for 2 years. That's how far ahead the education system in Nevada was.
Right.
I mean, it took them 2 years to catch up with what I already knew. And today, it breaks my heart to see the education system, and not just here in Nevada, but worldwide.
Oh, for sure.
And what I see happening, and this is just my personal opinion, what I see happening is rather than fixing the system or the school system or making it better, it's like, okay, well, let's go to a charter school. Let's go to a private school. Get my kids out of here. That is, to me, counterproductive because the majority of people can't afford to do that. So you are dumbing down the education system for the benefit of a few.
Right. And I'm going to roll it back around the corner for just a second.
Yeah, please do.
When you and I both went to school here in the old days.
The old days, of course.
And to get out of high school, we had to test out of high school.
Right.
That was removed. That's one of the issues in the CCSD. The augmentation of the school district is something that I've been pushing a little bit for. Whether it creates a charter school or a pod school or a micro school or whatever the case is, the idea is to supplement the school system, not take away from it. And in supplementing the school system, we're able to raise our children's education level. And we can do that through after-school education programs. We can do that through social interaction, and we can do that through incorporating, for example, homeschool programs into the public school programs, social programs, whether it's through sports or humanities or whatever. So that all the kids are interacting. When you surround yourself with smarter people, you inherently become smarter because of the association. There's a rule of you are who your 5 closest friends are in the world of success. So let's get all the kids together, and they're going to help raise their own education levels because they're going to talk to each other and they're going to interact. Once we get that started, we can put through programs And the city's not in charge of the school district, so I want to make sure we're clear on that. The city has nothing to do with the
I
school
understand
district.
that.
But we can help out in ways.
And there are a lot of ways that you can help.
Right.
So that's why I was talking earlier about that's how important our local government is.
Exactly.
Is the school board but it also takes the parents being involved.
It does.
And I just see too many parents giving up and saying, it's not worth it, I'm just going to take my kid over here because I don't care about the rest of the kids. But they should, because an educated populace is going to lift all of us.
Right. And what will happen is, if we show businesses that we have an education program that's going to support their children, their ideas, and the progressive learning scope that they want to see in their employees and their employees' families, we're going to attract those businesses. We're going to be able to take care of the infill issues. We're going to be able to take care of new businesses. We'll attract new businesses. It won't be, it's just Vegas. No, it'll be, hey, let's go to Las Vegas because they got what we need. And that's the things I want to work on.
Right. And there are, not everybody is designed for college.
No, not at all.
And trade schools are just as important, if not more important, than college.
One of my best
friends.
friends.
Because you need plumbers, you need electricians, you need carpenters, you need mechanics.
Right.
That's how we survive.
Yeah.
And you're not going to pile up a whole bunch of debt by going to a trade school.
No, and that's where a lot of programs can be put into place where you can encourage apprenticeships, and you can encourage vocational education schools, like in the old days it was Votech out there at, off of Sunset, and one of my best friends went there for many years, and my friends' parents were all teachers and administrators, and they're shaking their heads at this right now. They're going, I don't get it, what's going on? But those schools work. I have 4 kids. 3 of them can go to college and do what they need to do. The 4th one is never going to go to college. It's just not his thing. However, if I put him in a tech school, and he is technically minded in this kind of thing, he can put together all kinds of stuff. So a carpentry school, a plumbing school, mechanics school, those things benefit kids.
Finding their interest,
finding their path to success, and opening those doors. And those are things that the city can do.
Good. So what do you think can you give us the boundaries of your district? Basically, Summerlin, is it?
Yeah,
not?
it's kind of a funny shaped district.
Yeah,
it's got this little wiggle on one side. So it's part of Summerlin South. It's part of Sun City. It's part of it's all of Red Rock. It goes into the Angel Park area, Piccoli Ranch, and down along Durango, and does a little jig down to Buffalo. So it's kind of a funny shape, but basically it's the west end of Sahara and Charleston, and we're really blessed with a lot of great businesses in there, but there are a lot of empty storefronts, and we got to fill those things. And the other side of filling those storefronts is we aren't going to be able to. We won't have to do anything with taxes then, because if we have those storefronts covered, then what happens is those taxes are covered through the sales taxes and the taxes for businesses that are in place, which I've already signed a no new tax pledge, and I'm never going to raise taxes while I'm on any elected seat, because I don't think they're right. I think we're a little bit overtaxed, and I think that we are underrepresented in that. Kind of like the Boston Tea Party thing.
Right.
We pay enough taxes. That's what I'm going to say about it.
But it's not being taxed. It's how the tax dollars are being used.
Right.
That's the key issue.
And
that's where we need to focus our attention. Is how is this money being spent?
Exactly.
Is it being spent to benefit the community and the state and our city, or is it spent for other crap?
And that's one of the things that really
because if you fill those storefronts with businesses,
right,
you have to have the population to support those businesses.
Yes.
And in today's economy, and I'm not talking about the stock market, I'm talking about people like us, the middle class. If they don't have the money, that's where the economy is. They're not going to be buying shoes for their kids. No. They'll put it off till next year, or they're not going to be, going out and spending money. That's what stimulates the economy, and that's where we need to get money into those people's hands, or not take quite so much away from them.
Right. And
So-
and Las Vegas has always been really blessed with small businesses, and it creates an environment here in Las Vegas that small businesses can just excel and become everything. Yeah, there you go.
It's a perfect example right
perfect
here.
example right here. So what happens is we have to review those tax structures, and we
Right.
have to audit what we're actually spending money on. And I know there's 2 programs out there that are vital to Las Vegas. And one of them is an outreach for the homeless, which under our city charter, we're required to take care of. But a lot of it is funded by grants. Now, should it be funded by grants or should it be budgeted? Well, if it's under our city charter, it should be budgeted, not funded by grants. If they need a special item, yeah, okay, a grant works.
Right.
But as a
But
regular
a grant,
thing,
the problem with a grant is that you can only spend that money for very narrow, specific
Exactly.
things. So you may have all the money in the world to buy food, but if you don't have the budget to distribute that, it does you no good.
or even just to buy a fork to eat it with.
Right.
So we have to make sure that those things are budgeted instead of grant funded. And one of the things that I would really like to see is an actual audit of how we spend money. I know it's not a popular thing, but if we audit where we're spending money, we're going to find out exactly where we're bleeding money out, and we'll be able to fix a couple things. You know, another program that is funded by grants, and it's the equipment that our bomb squad uses. Now, people don't realize that the bomb squad is as busy as it is. But the only way they get those magical robots is through grants. And so these guys are a critical part of our infrastructure safety. So why are they operating on grants? And I get that they're expensive, but these are parts of our fire and police that we have to take care of. We have so many programs that are just they're over supplemented with grants as a need, not as something that
Well,
is budgeted.
I was going to say if you can't get the money budgeted,
then you have to go to grants. Absolutely.
But if you are counting on those, you're not going to be.
You're worrying about whether you got a job next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those grants go away.
Yeah.
You know, you see it in the fire department, you see it in the police department, you see it in public works, you see it in the Superfund road money for the roads. We gotta figure this out. We have to take a breath, step back, and step back into it after a solid audit, so we can say, okay, this is what it is. We have this much missing. Where are we going to come up with it? And where we come up with it is getting businesses into those empty stores, because then that money is the tax money comes in and supplements that, and we're less reliant on grants.
So and you know, forgive me because I'm not that savvy on how to do some of this, but it seems to me that bringing the businesses in without providing the consumers for that business initially, you're wasting your time. You're going to be, you know, I mean, sure, you're going to have business failures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, you bring in 10 businesses, 3 or 4 of them are going to fail.
Yep.
I mean, that's life.
Yep.
But if you don't have a consumer base for that business, then I mean, this is a terrible example, but I think it's a perfect example. The gaming industry.
Okay.
I don't, you know, they have, they've got the magic bullet. You know what I mean? It's the promise of, oh, you come in here and you spend your money and you're going to go away rich.
Right.
Well, you know, we all know that's BS, but
yeah, it's like a 3% return statewide. It's
so,
not a big return, but yeah.
But it's so they have a client base,
Mm-hmm.
and how do we develop a positive client base for businesses so that we can attract businesses? I mean, giving them tax breaks and a good education system is critical as well.
Right.
But you still have to have the buyers, consumers.
And that's where a little bit of research comes into play. If you have a shopping center that has a grocery store, a men's store, a women's store, and no place to buy shoes, well, then maybe we need to go find a shoe store for that shopping
Right.
center. If you have a hardware store and they have a garden store. Well, you and I, we need to rent equipment to go do it. So we
Right.
need to come up with a rental company that's going to supplement that store. And that's where the responsible infill structure, or the infill development, comes into place, so that you can do that, so that when you need a shoe store, you can put in a shoe store.
Right.
And you have a client that says, yeah, I want to come to Vegas, put a shoe store in. Or I have a client that has a rental equipment company, and we're going to put a store there, or a sub outlet store for
Right.
them,
Right.
whatever the case is,
Right.
so that they're able to meet the needs in that local neighborhood. And most of that, it actually comes into what the neighborhood needs are, not what the city needs are, because I'm not going to travel across Las Vegas and don't get me wrong, I will for the right restaurant.
Yeah, I know.
But I'm not going to go across town to go to a hardware store when I got, Home Depot 6 blocks from me.
Right.
Now, I will if that's the only hardware store. But that neighborhood feeds off of that store. And the neighborhoods around where I live, they feed off of the couple of Home Depots or whatever the hardware store is right there.
Right.
And I'm not endorsing anybody, but, they're the names. They're the big box stores.
Sure.
So, do I need to put in another big box store in there? No, probably not. Do I need to put in maybe a delivery service for lumber, or a gardening company that can come plant your plants? Something like that. That's going to keep that income available for those businesses, and it'll help keep them from failing.
So the city council is supposed to be a nonpartisan body, and we all know that on the surface, yes, it is, but we know that that's not really true. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean,
everybody has
you have
an
left and
opinion
right
there.
leanings,
Yes.
because so we have seen nothing in the last 4 or 5 years except the left and right going at it, and a lack of cooperation from both sides. How do we overcome that? I mean, and we have to start at the city level.
You do actually have to start even lower than that. You start in the school levels, at the school boards, and work.
But that
your way
is
up
the
from there.
city or county level.
Yeah, and so, it takes participation, and it takes understanding. There's programs in place that, and I'm going to call them what they are:
Yeah.
Republicans and Democrats.
Sure.
And I've already approached a couple of the folks that are on the opposite side of some of my views, and I've told them they did a great job with something, and I appreciated what they did. One of these councilmen nominated 20 people for an achievement award, and I was like, I just wish there were more. I wish there were more people on that list, because it builds relationships.
Sure.
It builds teamwork, and that is a team, and you have to work as a team. And it's not about me, and I know I said that, but it's not about me. It's about Las Vegas. And yes, we have geographic areas that, as council people, we're responsible for, but it's a city as a whole, and it's bringing that community into a unity of alignment, so that we progress, so we are successful, that our children are living in a safe environment, education friendly environment, that we have the infrastructure to take care of our people, we have the businesses that come in and meet the needs, so that, like we've talked about,
Right.
and we do things as a city, not as left or right, because there's good on both sides.
And there's good and bad on both sides.
Right.
Absolutely. I have always, and I'll admit to this right here now. I've always registered as nonpartisan, not independent, because that is a party,
Right.
but nonpartisan, because sometimes I agree with the left, sometimes I agree with the right, and I vote for issues, not candidates. Or I'm sorry.
I've been
I vote
chewed
for
out.
issues, not parties.
I've been fussed at a little bit for that same thing in the past. And the thing is, now, I mean, if you look at historically, some of the great Democrats, for example, I'm going to pick on one just because he's top of my head. If you talk about Kennedy, for example, he'd be a Republican now because of his views. And it's not because...
And Reagan would be a Democrat.
It could very easily be. That's the whole thing. It goes back and forth. The city council's responsibility is for the people of the city. It's not a party alignment. even though there is, I mean, my personal views are a little bit conservative.
Sure.
And I believe in balanced budgets, and I believe in living debt-free as much as you can, and I believe in providing for our children.
Let's talk about that for a minute,
Sure.
because I hear that all the time. Governments, whether they're city councils or the federal government, cannot be debt-free. They are not a business. They are a service, just like the Postal Service. The Postal Service is not a business. It is a service. And so how can you balance a budget for a service? I'm asking this.
That's people wonder that a little bit, and it's been a number of years since the federal government has actually had a balanced budget. I think it was, I want to say it was in 80 something, and I'm probably off on the year, but a friend of mine is very aware of when exactly it was. The city, by law, by Nevada law, you have to live in a balanced budget.
Right, but that money has already been spent.
Usually.
So when you and like on the federal, when you raise the debt limit, it's because you've already spent that money.
Right.
It's not, well, we're going to allow you to spend this much next year. No, we've already spent it. We have to pay our bills.
And that's where if you get that audit that we spoke about a minute ago, if we get that in place, we can actually know, okay, next year, based upon what we have from this year and a small growth percentage, we will have X amount of dollars. And we have to budget and work our programs in that dollar amount. And if we can't, then we have to go to grants.
Right.
But like we've mentioned, grants run out.
Or you have to, like families do, they say, is you have to budget your money better. And decide where you're spending that rather than wasting it.
And there's a couple programs that I know of that, for example, and I'm going to pick on the fire department for a second.
Pick on anybody you like.
Well, the fire department does.
We have secure doors here.
Oh, I appreciate it. And I can, and I'm a fireman, so I it's something I'm very familiar with. The fire department, when they go to bid on their new fire trucks, they will contact North Las Vegas, Henderson, Clark County, and everybody will get together so that they get a better discount on the trucks, which is
economy of scale,
and it makes our money last a little bit longer so that they can actually put, I don't know, hose on the truck so they can put the fires out.
Right.
So that program works. The same program tends to go along with the police agencies and some of the other ones that are involved. And we got to make sure we're being diligent in that, because if we're not, we're going to blow our budget every year. And yes, there's events that happen that can cause you to blow your budget, but most municipalities have, and for lack of a better term, a rainy day fund.
Most of them do. And
so you're able to correct it with a little bit of influx of funding. But without a audit, we don't know. We can't sit there and say, I got, and in Las Vegas's budget's like just a little bit over $1 billion or so, with a general fund and like 640-ish million. So we know round numbers, but until we perform a real audit to get all the numbers in to find those leaky spots, we don't know for sure. And if we're able to plug those holes and get the budget accounted for every penny, then we can sit there and say, okay, here you go. We have these funds available. This is your budget. Don't overspend.
Right.
And on the school side, one of the programs that a former mayor in North Las Vegas was really touting was individual budgets in schools. So you walk up to the principal and you hand him a check. There's your money for the school year. You get together with your students, your teachers, and your PTA, and you figure out what you want to do. That's your budget. If you go over, I don't know where you're going to get the money because it ain't coming from us.
So that brings up a difficult situation in that how do you determine how and who determines how much money each individual school gets? Because there are schools that are located in more affluent areas, so their tax base is higher, and so you've got a middle school here and a middle school here, and this school has the same number of students but it's getting half the money. So how do you?
It goes back to a very unpopular thought right now, school choice. Now, again, the city doesn't control any of that, but if you have vouchers for the kids to go to X school or Y school, and the kids want to go to Y school because of a better learning opportunity, then X school's money is going to go down a little bit.
But don't you think that's backwards?
It could be.
I mean, it's we have an education system here that the students in this school should be getting the same quality of education as the students in this school.
They
and
should.
when the parents has to say, you know what, I don't like this school sucks, you're not teaching my kids, I want them to go here. There's something seriously wrong with the entire system.
And it starts at the top in that world.
Right.
It starts with the school superintendent and the school board, and it works its way down to the principals. And if the principals aren't effective leaders in their schools, time to change them.
Yep.
Because ideally, under the state programs, each school should have an equal learning ability, or equal learning opportunity, rather, so that the kids all have the same ability to learn. Now, there are some schools that are designated as special,
like STEM schools.
Right.
Leads right over here around
there's
the corner.
STEM schools, there's Title X schools, there's the advanced schools that are out there. And so you're going to see not necessarily a misbalance, but it's definitely an appearance of favorable learning activities. However, the funding for those less affluent schools, it is available because they get supplemental incomes through other programs. And so they're giving the money to them to try and bring them up, but they're not coming up. And I don't know why.
Okay. Whose responsibility is that to bring them up? I mean, what is the principal's responsibility?
That is a joint responsibility
just
between
administrative or
the principal, the teachers, and the parents, and the children.
Okay.
Everybody has to take ownership in this so that they can advance. If a kid is doing poorly in math, but he's excelling in English or social studies, maybe that kid could help the other kids, and those classes.
I was going to go there because
peer assistance.
When I was going to school, it was in the class. If you had students that were doing well and students that weren't doing too well, they were paired up.
Yeah.
The good students and they were study buddies.
Yes.
And
it creates friendships.
And it terrific. And you also find, like you said, the perfect example. This student's good in math, but he sucks in English. This student sucks at math, but he's good at English. That's a perfect pair up.
Get those two together.
And I think I don't think teachers get enough credit.
They don't. They absolutely
I think
don't.
that they are shaping our entire society going forward.
Yeah.
And there's people on both sides that are bitching about whatever it is, but there has to be some middle ground that we can help assist these people, because they are raising the next generation of population for our country.
Abraham Lincoln said it best. What's taught in the classroom is how we'll be governed in the next generation.
Yes. Because they're going to be the ones that decide which homes we go to.
Yeah. I want the one with the putting green. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
But the thing is we have to work together. We can't work as individuals fighting against each other all the time. We can't have fist fights in City Hall. We can't have principals or especially superintendents saying, well, I'm taking another $2 million out of you guys because you just fired me. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. If the guy's not doing the job, send him packing, and don't write these golden parachutes into their contracts, because that in itself will cause them to be less motivated, in my opinion.
No. You're right. But but we do these things because the school year starts and we're short 1,200 teachers.
Oh yeah.
So here's the little incentive to get you to come on and blah blah blah.
And we're turning away teachers that have massive
Yeah.
Stacks of credentials.
Yeah.
You know, I know one lady that's running for school board right now. Unbelievable credentials. They told her no. And I was like, you just told a teacher no when you're short 1,500 teachers? Are you kidding me? I would put sergeants from the Air Force and the Army or wherever to work as those teacher spots in the meantime to fill those slots, just because those guys have to teach. They teach soldiers and servicemen all the time. So, and I'm really reaching there. I'm saying because I know that that's not the mission of the military. Yeah,
and a 19. Well, not
right.
much, but
well, yeah. But the point in there is people are being turned away that have qualifications and the credentials to teach.
Well, and that's a double-edged sword there.
Yes.
It's really a problem because there are qualified people, but we have to have certain requirements to protect the kids.
Oh, absolutely. And I wholeheartedly support the background investigations of these situations. Because there's teachers that'll sneak through the system that have been in other places that they have not been proper.
There should be a national database so that if you're considering hiring a teacher from here, their records from every school they've ever taught should be available.
I would not disagree with that.
And I mean, and I got that idea from, police officers who is a jerk over in this jurisdiction, but comes over here and gets a job and nobody knows it. So,
right.
Excuse me.
So, yeah. And again, it takes accountability. It takes people getting involved. It takes stepping up to run for election. It takes stepping in to the PTA. It takes going to the school board meetings. It takes being involved at every single level, all the way from homemaker to governor of the state. Everybody has to work together to make this work. And if you can't do that, if you can't work with people, please get out of the way and let somebody that can do it.
You hear it too. We hear a lot of people screaming about my freedoms. But what I never hear in that same breath is my responsibilities.
Right.
Because with freedom comes responsibility.
Exactly.
You don't get one without the other. So if you're going to be screaming about, your freedom for this or your freedom for that, then you better be out there doing something to be responsible to earn those freedoms. Anyway, never mind.
Oh no, it's a great point, because we constantly are saying, oh, it's my right, it's my right. Okay.
What did you do to earn that right?
Certain,
what are you
certain
doing
rights
to earn that right?
are given to you. Certain rights are earned.
Right. But even the ones that are given to you, you still have a responsibility to ensure that whatever it is going on will help perpetuate those rights, not only for you, but for the upcoming generations as well.
I've never been someone that has supported a racial profiling of any program, because our country was built on equality. Every man created equal. It says right in our founding documents. If you don't believe that, read it. Read what it says. All men.
But what it says in the actual practice of it isn't necessarily the same thing.
But and
we all know that.
And that's the unfortunate truth of it, because you can't live in an elitist world. We live in a republic. We live in a society that believes in freedoms. It believes that everybody should have those freedoms, and you should always be willing to defend those freedoms, whether it's through writing a letter or taking an oath saying, I'll give my life, like all the servicemen and women do in this country. You have to stay involved. You have to be a part of it. You can't just let the world go by you. The solutions are there if people get involved.
Yep. And Alan, unfortunately, we're running out of time, so let me give you a couple minutes to address the voters in the audience, and if there's anything that you'd like to add or any points that you'd like to make, now's your chance.
My name's Alan Bigelow, and I'm running for Las Vegas City Council in Ward 2. It's really easy to get a hold of me. My phone number is 702-427-5656. My website is Alan, and it's spelled ALAN, Ward 2, the number 2, Vegas.com. and all the social media is Alan Ward 2 Vegas as well. Check it out. Take a look at what's there. I'm working with a great bunch of other candidates that are supporting your freedom, supporting your rights, standing up. You know, we've all put our head in the noose, figuratively, to run for office, and we're here to support you. We're here to help you. We're here to get the job done. None of this is about me. It's about our children, our grandchildren, and making sure Las Vegas comes out of this pandemic successfully with prosperity and hope.
Well said.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching and paying attention here for this little bit of time. I can't stress enough, it's your responsibility to get out there and vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for. That's your choice. That's why we're here. So thank you, and thank you, Alan,
Thank
for coming
you.
in and taking the time
Absolutely,
to share
my pleasure.
your thing with us. And if we don't see you before, we'll see you later.